Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday YouTube channel. I am your host, Ryan Hartley. This channel is for heart-centered leaders just like you. I hope our time spent together helps you leave a heartprint where those around you are left better than yesterday. These interview sessions are sponsored by our great friends at Elevate Online Marketing. On episode 191, I am joined by our great friend Mike Maher. Mike is a breathwork coach and the host of the Take a Deep Breath YouTube channel, which is one of the most popular breathwork channels on YouTube. He is also the host of the Breathcast podcast, where he has been joined by some of the world's leading breathwork experts, including Patrick McCallum, James Nestor, and Laird Hamilton. I hope this conversation inspires you to do something which we do so naturally, but yet do it more purposefully, intentionally, and consciously. You're going to hear all about how to breathe consciously. You're going to hear about why we don't breathe as nature intended us to breathe. I hope that you head to Mike's website and his YouTube channel and just try out some of the free exercises and experience that he offers. If you'd like to know more, head to takeadeepbreath.co.uk or search YouTube Take a Deep Breath. You can find all the good links in the show notes. Here we go. Episode 191 with Mike Maher. Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. 19 million people have found their way to your YouTube channel to learn how to do something that we do. How many times a day?
20 to 25,000 breaths a day we tend to take.
So 25,000 times I do this thing. That's plenty of practice, and yet 19 million people have sought out your YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel called, and what is it all about?
So it's called Take a Deep Breath, and it's all to do with the power of conscious breathing. And it could be anything from trying to get to sleep or trying to get into an altered state of consciousness. It's everything in between.
I've shared a little bit about my own kind of little breathwork journey on the podcast here and there, and for me, I got into breathwork through, I tell you what, it was when Boris locked us down for I think it was the third time. I was like, I'm not normally a stressed and anxious person, but it'd just been the Christmas holidays. The kids needed to go back to school, and I was just getting overwhelmed and anxious. So I found this guy called Wim Hof, and I started just to follow his videos. I do a few cold showers, and I practiced his breathwork, and the and the physical sensations that I was having in my body was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I understand that there's a certain story taking you back to 2016. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. So all everyone's got a good a backstory of some sort, isn't they? Mine was, and there's normally a bit of tragedy in there. So I was going through a bit of a divorce. And going back just a little bit further, I was always scared of getting in the cold pools on holiday. So we'd have it all the sea. I could never get in. I'd jump in, jump back out again. And then I was just listening to a lot of Joe Rogan while I was going through kind of the marriage kind of breaking apart and all that sort of jazz. And kept hearing that name, Wim Hof, Wim Hof, Wim Hof. But I'd never listened to his podcast. And then finally I got around to one day, I think I was in the car, and I was listening to the Wim Hof podcast, and he starts doing the breathing, and I started doing it with him. I didn't realize, by the way, don't do the breathing while you're driving.
Yeah.
I didn't know, there was no warning. So I got a feeling of something.
Yeah.
And then I thought I need to go and spend some time with this guy. And I've never done anything like that in my life. Never. Always been on holiday with like friends or family. That's it.
Yeah.
And Googled him. There was a few spaces left on his Polish, I think it was called the Poland Experience Retreat.
Yeah.
And this was end of November, early December 2016. And then just flew out there, and there he was on the first night. There's 60 of us, and there's Wim Hof. He comes in, and he just starts swearing and shouting, and and that was the start of meeting this great ice legend.
He's a character, isn't he? You know, and I think here we are 6 years later. He's really starting to go mainstream. All the big podcasters have had him on over the last couple of years, and obviously the BBC did their Freeze the Fear. And he what was your experience of him? What was he like to be around? He comes across as a very charismatic guy, but some of these celebrities were like, just they felt safe in his presence and calm, and they almost gained a sense of belief through his belief and the rubbing off of his kind of demeanor.
Do you know, that's a good question, actually. And I thought about this quite a lot. He would be a fantastic cult leader. You would follow him into a volcano. And I can't really quite explain. There's something in his eyes. It's something in his conviction, the way he comes across with stuff. You just think you can do it. So it was the first proper night. So we'd slept there next day. So the first proper night of training, we were in his house. He's got like a house in Poland next to the hotel we were all at. There was just something about him going, come on, we'll get in the ice water. Let's do it now. And because he's there, it kind of just gives you something extra. You just feel like I can do this. He's inspiring me. And it's obvious now you think about how many millions of people have been impacted, because those breathing techniques are not new. There's nothing new about Tumo or 30 deep breaths in and a breath hold. There's nothing new in breath work. It's all thousands of years old, yet he was able to kind of pierce through the minutia of all of that and get to the surface really quickly. And he had a bit of help maybe with Joe Rogan and that sort of stuff, but he has this magnetic quality. And in his presence, it's worth, I say it's worth the bus fare alone just to go and spend some time with him. Forget all the other stuff.
And I think what you said a minute ago about yourself is the backstory, and he certainly has a backstory, and that backstory led him to the cold, and that led him to the world records, which then sparks the curiosity, isn't it? It's like how that leads to case studies. So you come back from Poland. Did you come back? Was it like that cliche? Were you changed? Were you forever changed? Were you curious? Like how did Mike return from Poland?
Yeah, actually, that's not such a happy story. I got back. It was like a week's retreat, and I was on fire. It's a bit of a joke because it's called Inner Fire, his company. But I'm on. I remember just before we flew back, I'm walking around in t-shirt in Prague in like -6, and some old Prague dude comes up to me and goes, "You're not very well, are you?" And I was like, "Yeah," because you're a bit crazy, aren't you? I was like, "Oh no, I've just spent some time with Wim." Anyway, I get back and I think it's the day after or 2 days after my dog passes away. My dog of like 12 years. And I'm like, oh, shit. And that really hit me hard. But doing the breathing really helped, actually. I remember just going off into the fields and just crying and doing this breath work. And that kind of got me through a bit of that. But I was changed. And I think the biggest thing I noticed was when I got back to work the following week, I was sitting in a meeting because I've got a big corporate background, still kind of connected to the corporate background now a little bit. Sitting in a very stressful meeting, I'm hyper aware of my breath for the first time really. I'm conscious of my chest and my belly and the sound of my breath. And I'm getting all these kind of attacks because, if you've been in a corporate meeting or someone's watching this, that they tend to blame somebody for something. And you're sitting there and all of a sudden I'm just sitting in this chair and I'm like, whoa, what just happened to my breathing? And it become really fast and really shallow. And I was like, oh, this is stress. And my body is reacting to it. So there was this real moment of, oh, look at that. Look at what the message the breath is giving you. And it was just the combination of the Wim Hof, the dog, that it just got me into this, like, what's going on here? I need to explore this more.
Yeah, you're right. It's the corporate environment can do something. And, there's, I know you're well read on the James Nestor side of things, and I'm sure we'll get to him in a minute, but just I guess it's like the little small pauses of breath where we're reading an email or something like that, or something comes through. And for me, I used to be a presenter, so I used to present a lot, which would mean my physiology would start to do exactly what you just said, a bit more shallow, a little bit more sweaty, and breathing, slow breathing was always something I did at the time to calm myself. I had no awareness of breath work. I had no just something about me as a presenter learned that as a coping technique to bring myself back into the present. And I guess there are two, what I've learned is that there are two purposes of breath work: to upregulate the system and to downregulate the system. Is that correct?
I think there's more, but you put two nice buckets together there. Yeah, because in you can put yourself in a stressful situation, And people might think, why would you want to do that? And we can talk about that in a sec.
Mm.
And you can take yourself out of a stressful situation. So we often talk
Mm.
about fight and flight and rest and digest,
Mm.
or parasympathetic and sympathetic, sympathetic being the fight or flight. And what people don't tend to know about things like Wim Hof breathing is a stressful activity, as
Mm.
is going to the gym and lifting weights, as is a number of other things we don't always consider to be stressful. And stressful things are good for us. We need stress. Without stress, we'd all be floppy and fall over and stuff. So, but then it's that classic thing of, you go too far, the stress is no good and it causes lots of problems. So we just need to be conscious of that. So things like Wim Hof breathing and holotropic breathing are really good stressors, but actually the world probably already has enough stressors. And so I tend to lean more now down the other end of the scale, which is the slow and gentle breathing. I'll still do the big huffing and puffing, but that is, if you think of it as I don't know, on a clock, it's probably, the last sort of 3 or 4 minutes of the clock is huffing and puffing. The majority of it for me is slow, conscious nasal breathing, because we need to down regulate, or that's fancy term to say we just need to calm down a little bit. We're all a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious, and who doesn't need a little bit more vacation or relaxation time?
Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. I just wanted to let you know on the 24th of October, I will be welcoming 12 men to the Always Better Than Yesterday Good Fathers program. It is 6 weeks of online journeying with 12 good men. I really believe that if I can help good men become even better men, then better men will make better dads. It's been 10 years since I became a father, and it has been the most fulfilling journey, but full of challenges and obstacles that I probably was under-equipped for. I didn't feel prepared for the sacrifice, the tiredness, the impact on our health, let alone what it means to be a good husband and a good teammate as we try and journey in becoming the best dad possible. These children don't come with guides, and it just, for me, I felt like whilst I wanted to be the best dad I could possibly be, I've definitely felt a sense of winging it. And it doesn't seem to be conversations that men seem to have about what it means to be a dad. So I've set up Good Fathers. It's the first program that I'm offering, dedicated specifically to men, good men who want to become even better dads. Come and join us. We're starting on the 24th of October. Use the link in the show notes to come and read more about it. But first and foremost, this will be a safe space for men to explore their purpose as a father. It's going to contain a combination of coaching, learning, conversation and reflection. Each week we'll follow a semi-structured topic of conversation. I'll support you with resources and prompts designed to facilitate a powerful, transformative experience. You will not only learn from me, but from each other and shared experiences. I do not have all the answers, but I will hope to create an environment and a space for you and other good men to reflect and to create much more of an intentional style of parenting that will help you leave that legacy by becoming the best possible dad that you can be. If you know a good man that would benefit from this container, this time and space, please do share them the show notes. It's www.abty.co.uk/good-fathers. That's Good Fathers on our website. Here we go, back to the conversation. There are a few people that you have been mentored, the Wim Hof, Patrick McCowan, Led Hamilton, who's the other guy? James Nestor. These people have all been part of your circle. They've all been part of your Breathcast podcast. And how have you started to? How did your journey with Take a Deep Breath then start? You've come back from Wim Hof. You've been captivated by the power of this breath. When did you decide to do anything with it? For yourself and for a channel.
Yeah, I do recognize I've been really fortunate, and I think with all these sort of things, there's a big dollop of good luck that comes with this sort of stuff, and being in the right place.
Such humility, yeah.
No, I didn't know, because you know what, I've always, for years I wanted to be a quote unquote YouTuber, and I was doing wedding videos and all sorts of other silly stuff. And couldn't ever seem to. So I always had these. There's this thing called The Unfair Advantage. It's a good book. I think Ali Abdul put me onto it, and it talks about like you mix together a load of stuff. So I already had video editing skills, did wedding videos, did a lot of presentations in my corporate career, so that helped. And then suddenly add the breath work to it, and nobody else is doing breath work really on YouTube. 5-6 years ago, there's a bit, but there's not much. So that's the look in there. But yeah, it just, getting back from making Wim Hof style breathing videos, doing that for a while, thinking that's the only breathing exercise that exists, not knowing really, really embarrassing to say now, thinking that was the only kind of breathing exercise that there was, maybe a bit of box breathing. But and then going from that and starting to get a bit lost really, because I was doing that for maybe a year or two, and I was like, just kind of making the same video here. What's what where does this go from here? And then funnily enough, after you and I had a little chat last week, I was speaking to Nina, and she's like, oh yeah, I found that Patrick McKeown for you. And I was like, did you? And she's my girlfriend. She's like, yeah, I remember. So I would never have discovered him without my girlfriend, which is a wonderful thing. So we so during the pandemic, you found your Wim Hof stuff. I found Patrick during the pandemic, and he's the author of The Oxygen Advantage, which is what I'm wearing on my chest right now for those listening to this. I'm an Oxygen Advantage coach. And I found him, and what I really liked about what he teaches is science, trust, and accessibility, because these exercises are almost fit for everybody, regardless of your kind of background. And so with him, I was able to understand, this is why the body's doing what it's doing and how it works. And this is the effect of this breathing exercise. And this is why the mind is getting more stressed or less stressed. So that was really helpful. And then through him, he connected me to James Nestor, who had a book just about to come out. And I was very cheeky and got James Nestor on my first episode of the podcast, as we spoke about before. And then he went on Joe Rogan the week later, and it just went poof like that. So suddenly I was given this gift again of, okay, you don't need just to make one type of breathing exercise. You're learning about different breathing exercises, and now you're starting to interview experts. And the plan was just to probably speak to James at the time. I never really planned any more than that. And then I just released the 52nd episode this week, which is ironically is with Patrick McKeown again. So that's just dropped this evening, actually. So that's a nice little circle of events just coming back to that again.
I love that. And just for clarity's sake, because I think what I want to do in a minute is once I've helped to unpack your kind of journey with it, is help my audience who are probably beginners, maybe have dabbled a little bit with breath work, but beginners, and I'd like them to understand the different types of breath work that you might suggest for different purposes. But when we're talking about Patrick McKeown and The Oxygen Advantage, the breathing cure, and when we're talking about James Nestor breath, that book like blew my mind.
Yeah, me too.
It blew my mind. And I'd love to talk about nose breathing specifically in a minute, because that's powerful. I think some of my audience have seen that I tape my mouth at night, and that was again something I took from that book, and I know that you do something similar as well. So with your journey now, again, your channel has blown up, 142,000 subscribers, 19 million views, and you've added breathwork coaching to your offering. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's online courses. There's another one in the background. There's one at the minute. There's one-to-one coaching. There's one-to-many coaching. Recently I've just qualified as what they call a master instructor, so I'll be teaching people to become breathwork coaches now, which is really freaking cool. So looking forward to getting into that next year as well. And then there's just the online stuff as well. It's all of the different exercises, but the thing I really like is this sort of stuff where it's talking to people like you, unpacking ideas, and then me getting the privilege of learning firsthand, and then the audience getting to listen to that and then learning some of that stuff. And that's been probably I was thinking about that today, actually, as I was thinking about this conversation coming up. I was like, what's been the biggest gift here? Because I don't really read a lot of books. I struggle to read. I'm quite dyslexic. And so I will make myself read, but actually my education has come from this, other people's podcasts, and doing my own. And it's such a gift.
People, as iron sharpens iron, people sharpen people. And I think let's play out a few scenarios then. If I try and visualize my audience, they are leaders in some way. They're possibly parents and trying to do the best that they can for the children in the home. Life can be busy, life can be stressful. How can, thinking about in the home, thinking about trying to be the best parent they can be, everything's busy, kids can be, kids. And there's an element of stress in the body. Maybe there's work and there's deadlines and there's stress in the body. What might some breath work techniques that you might recommend to bring them back into the now, back into the present, and get their heart and mind all calm and back on the same team?
Yeah, okay. So there are literally thousands of breathing exercises, but they
Mhm.
do most of them fall in a spectrum. And you know how earlier we spoke about kind of rest and digest and fight and flight. And I've got my hands up for those listening.
Mhm.
There's a similar scale with breathing. So you've probably got on one side the hyperventilation stuff like Wim Hof, holotropic breathing, circular conscious connected breathing, and all these different terms people might have heard of. And then on the other side, you've got light, slow, and deep breathing, Buteyko
Mhm.
breathing, oxygen advantage, all that sort of stuff. And so it's a spectrum. And in
Mhm.
the middle, what you've got is normal breathing, your 25,000 breaths a day. And what you
Mm.
do on either side of that spectrum influences the 25. So if you're huffing and puffing all day, you're
Mm.
going to speed your breathing up. If you slow it down, you're going to slow your breathing down and all that sort of stuff. So with somebody taking that scenario you've just given then of a busy parent, which is quite close to home at the minute, or will be in the future, for me, the one that I'm really excited about and doing myself a lot at the minute is coherence breathing.
Mhm.
It's also known as cadence breathing. It's also known as the perfect breath. And
Mhm.
it's a 5.5-second inhale and 5.5-second exhale. HeartMath use it, which I know you're familiar with.
Mhm.
And 20 minutes of this a day is incredible. And the example I'm keep quoting to people is the basketball study, which
Mhm.
took a NBA team, I forget which one now, and they want to see how people can deal with pressure, right? So
Mhm.
it's like how many goals or how many hoops can you score in 60 seconds? I'm probably butchering the numbers a little bit here. And they split the group into three. And the first group, they just isolated, didn't do anything different for a month. And the second
Mm.
group, they played motivational sports films too. And the third group did 20 minutes of coherence breathing at once a day for 30 days.
Mm.
First group, no changes, as we expect with a control group. I think second group, the motivational films, I think there was a slight improvement. But the
Mhm.
interesting thing is the coherence guys, they tripled the amount of shots they could get under pressure in the net. And now that's not they've not become necessarily better basketball players and they've improved their skills. No, what that means is while that pressure's on, that countdown's happening, they're able to remain calm and cool.
Mm.
And so to
Mm.
unpack that for us, what that means is we're in a lot of fight and flight. It's a busy world we live in now. We're in generally poor posture, poor artificial light. We're not grounded, and a whole host of other things. And our breathing's been
Mm.
affected by
Mm.
that. It's too fast and too shallow. And so we're in this fight or flight. But actually, doing something like a coherence practice before you wake up, or before you get out of bed, or before you go to sleep, it just calms the body down and it increases the HRV, the heart rate variability, which is a
Mhm.
good marker for health and longevity.
Mhm.
I've got a friend who's a big expert in this, Tom Granger, and he's saying he's maxed out his HRV. He's tracking it because he's maxed out doing this. He can't get any more because he's been doing this coherence breathing for many months now. So this is the exciting one for me. And the good thing about this, it's not stressful. Don't really
Mm.
need anything for it. There are many free breathing exercises that you can listen to, and there's apps you can do. But really, it's just that gentle breathing in and out through the nose. If you want to take it to the next
Mm.
level, you can do what the heart math guys do, apply some sort of emotion to it. So if you want to feel some
Mm.
gratitude or some love or some joy, and just maybe you're sitting there, your hand on your heart and one on your belly, and you're just breathing in nice and slowly through the nose and out through the nose at a rate of 5.5 seconds. Maybe you're thinking about how grateful you are for your family, sunshine, for your legs, for memories you've had in the past, and just start to get that little tingle of that gratitude coming in, and suddenly, boof, you're taking that breath work to the next level.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I guess some of the underlying science would be a bit what you said around being in the moment, being in the present, being calm and gaining access then to the full prefrontal cortex and the ability to think critically, logically, rationally. But also then I think what the heart math say is that when you are in alignment, heart, mind, body, in the at the level of the body, you open up your ability to connect with the energy, those around you, on the same vibes and frequencies, which means that that you're connected to something bigger than yourself. It's why the All Blacks have a competitive advantage, because when they do the haka at the start, they're creating coherence with the group.
Yes. Yeah. I also have it on good authority that the All Blacks are doing a lot of strong breathing exercises to also get them fit. So there's a lot going on with those guys. Like, they're an interesting group. But yeah, with that coherent stuff, it's having that daily ritual, that daily practice.
Yeah.
And it's just it's being in the moment, and it's just slowing everything down, and it's just taking a bit of time for yourself. So that one, that's my go-to. What's interesting with the emotional side of stuff is I think I mentioned to you previously, I was with a free diver, the guy that held his breath for 10 minutes. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. And when asked what was one of the defining factors, he said he thought of something happy. And that to me really stuck with me, because he said, I've tried anger, see if I could get myself through it that way. I've tried different emotions, but for him, the happiness got him to a world record breath hold. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah. And that was the thing I'd learned in James Nestor's book, is that this community of freedivers, their lung size seemed to be 25% bigger than the average. And you can think statistically, oh, that's just a quirk, a coincidence, how maybe they were just drawn to it. But actually what it reveals is the ability to grow the muscle, grow the organ, grow the heart as a muscle, and expand it through practice. And this expectation that our lung size shrinks as we get older, it's a false cause and effect. It gets smaller because we stop using it for the way that we could possibly use it. And I understand that you ended up going out to do this free diving training yourself. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience, mate. It was one of those things where I'm terrified of the ocean, so it's a bit like I was terrified of the cold and and I can't swim. So you might think that's good for free diving because you sink, but actually it's not. But no, it was cool. I connected with Tom. He came on my podcast. In fact, I found him. Somebody bought me a subscription to whatever that documentary website's called now, begins with a Y. I have to dig it out in a second. But he was on that. I was just looking for breath stuff one day while I was poorly, and his documentary came up where he was doing some breath holds with a guy in Britain. So I just DM'd him. He said, "Yeah, let's do a podcast." And then from there, I'm getting invited out to Corfu to go and learn how to free dive with them. Like, world record dude that's in the Guinness Book. So yeah, go out there, and we're doing what's called static apnea for the first 3 days, and that's literally face down in the pool doing exactly what they tell you not to do at school, which is pretend to be dead, and you kind of just laying face down, and you're trying to give signals that you're still alive because you're trying to stay down there as long as you can face down. You obviously don't do this at home without a professional and all that good stuff. So you just give them like a little, I'm showing on the camera, a little twitch. You finger, that's all you want to give, because anything more than that, you're burning up precious oxygen, because you're trying to go for a really long breath hold. So you're doing static apnea. Here's the interesting connection back to what we were just speaking about. When he got to do his world records and what he teaches people, like when I went to go with him, teaches you coherence breathing. And when asked, how did you know how to do that? Did you learn it somewhere? He goes, no, I just started doing that. I didn't even know it was called coherence breathing. So interestingly, this guy that was breaking records 10, 15 years ago was doing these, his body just knew to do these breathing techniques, just was in there. So he's teaching us coherence breathing. Then we're going in doing breath holds. And even here, lying down on this floor in the morning, before I have to log on and crack on with some work, I'll do my coherence breathing, then I'll go and do a breath hold. And what's interesting is if I just go for a normal breath hold now, and I'm talking on empty lungs, so it's a lot harder, I can probably get about 60 seconds before I'm really uncomfortable. But if I do the coherence breathing for 20 minutes, I can get an extra 50% on that. I can get to 90 seconds, and it's easier. So again, just shows your body gets into this relaxed state. So again, I'll keep preaching the benefits of coherence. But Corfu, beautiful. Free diving, really cool. Snorkeling, take the mask off, you go down as deep as you can. I could only get about 7 meters before my ears started to get really painful. But we saw some beautiful stuff, and the people were really cool. There was a couple that were scuba people for years, and they got involved in this, and they were just like, I'm not going back. This is just so much better. You don't scare the fish away. There's no bubbles. But seeing Tom in the water was another level, because he's a legend. You know, he's you know, he knows Michael Phelps and all these people. He's an absolute legend, and he is just like a human dolphin. He just goes down, and we somebody forgot their sunglass. No, somebody lost their snorkel. He's like, I'll go and find it. We might be about an hour though, and he's just going down. Ironically, the snorkel was still on the boat. We found it afterwards, after about 10 minutes, but that weren't too bad. but it was just like, oh my god, how are we going to find this? And he was like, I'll find it, don't worry, it's on the floor somewhere, and I can get down there. So being around people like that, you know, talking about the heart coherence and stuff, being in these people's kind of energetic fields without sounding too woo-woo is very very motivational to be around these sort of people. Yeah,
of course. One of the things you said earlier around that perfect breath is it's 5.5 and 5.5, 5.5 in, 5. The other dimension, because it's not two-dimensional, it's not in and out, it's also, I understand, volume. And when you breathe in 5.5, you actually breathe in 5.5 liters of air as well. So it's almost like literally the perfect breath. It's 5.5 seconds and 5.5 liters, I understand.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't come across that.
I think it's in breath. And when he's talking about the perfect breath, and I think that is, there's something there, isn't it, that we're just, because what you said earlier around posture, not breathing properly. So people might think, oh, you know, we've been breathing, you know, forever, like it's not causing me harm, but aren't aware of some of the reasons that we're doing things wrong. You know, many of the illnesses, conditions, inflammations that we've got, many of the cancers that are present in the body are actually as a result of sustained lack of oxygen, because it's just not getting through and round the body. What's your perspective on some of that, and more specifically, you know, what are some of the things that we're getting wrong with our breath?
Yeah, so we breathe too fast and we breathe too shallow. We breathe using the wrong hole. You know, the mouth is for kissing and the nose is for breathing. So we're doing it all wrong. And one of the guests, Dr. Belissa Vranich, was the one that really woke me up to this. She's trained UFC fighters, first responders, SWAT teams in the US, and she's a PhD. She's really interested. So you know, we get it all wrong. And why is that? Well, we have poor role models. You know, there's that old adage of sit up straight and shut your mouth, but I don't know how often that's used these days now. But that comes from something. A lot of these adages come from somewhere. So sit up straight and shut your mouth is a really important one. Elbows off the table. Why is that? Because when you've got your elbows on the table, you're in poor posture. There's something to that as well. That's why, you know, people sit up straight when they eat.
For those listening, I'm just adjusting myself and sitting back.
I do the same thing. Let's see you adjust. I need to adjust. So we breathe too fast, we breathe too shallow, we breathe through the wrong holes, and we're doing it all incorrectly. Now, we used to breathe functionally. We used to breathe well. If you look at a baby or a 2 or 3 year old, belly's moving, they're probably standing up straight. They're hyper flexible, as we know babies can be as well. And then what happens over time? Copy our parents, so watching TV, not their fault. Like me, I'm in front of this desk 8 hours a day, I'm not necessarily moving all the time. And so you get into poor posture. And when you're in poor posture, this beautiful muscle that sits here, people can't see because they're listening, just under your rib cage, this thing called the diaphragm, this jellyfish kind of shape, pizza size muscle, which is really the muscle responsible for your breathing. There's a few, but this is the big one. If that can't move properly, you can't draw in right amount of oxygen into the lower lobes of the lungs, where the main part of the blood is. So gas exchange is all off, without getting too technical. Anyway, you can't be efficient. And if you're in poor posture as well, you're probably breathing shallow. When you're stressed, you're breathing through the mouth. Now, here's the cool thing and the tragic thing. Breathing's bidirectional. And what I mean by that is how you think and feel affects your breathing. So if I was to scare you right now, you're probably going to gasp. Or, you know, if a car nearly runs you over, you breathe. You can picture the breathing, can't you? If you're lost in the forest and you hear some twigs crunch behind you and it's night and you're by yourself, your breathing's probably not slow and gentle, you know, it's probably fast. And so the exterior forces are affecting our breathing every second of the day, but it also works the other way. And what I mean by that is, if we take a moment right now and we start to breathe slowly and lightly and we extend our exhale, And the exhale is a signal to the brain that everything's okay. We're going to calm our bodies down. And you can see that with blood pressure monitors. You can see that with HRV monitors. You can just see that. You can just experience that in the way you feel. And there was one study done on mice, and they used a really interesting term. They said that they found neurons in the brain that spy on the way you breathe. And it's a really interesting term, that the spy. But essentially, there's neurons watching what you're doing right now with your breathing. And because you can consciously affect your breathing, you can consciously affect how you feel. And that to me is the coolest part, is like you've got this key, and it kind of unlocks all your kind of emotions and hormones and sleep and blood pressure and health and longevity. And that key is your conscious breathing. So we've got it wrong, but that's okay, because we can fix it again with a bit of education. And we just need to wake up to this stuff. And the good thing is it's happening. You know, there's podcasts like this, there's books like James Nestor's book, there's the work Patrick McHugh's doing, the Oxygen Advantage. You know, it is turning now to that point where, in fact, I think Patrick had said when I was with him a few weeks ago, the Oxygen Advantage, as one example of one school of breath work, has increased tenfold in the last 4 years. And it wasn't small 4 years ago. So the fact that it's just exploded just shows people are waking up to the conscious power of the breath. So we need to use the nose, because the nose is meant for breathing. It filters the air, cools the air, warms the air, sterilizes the air, moistens the air, pressurizes the air. Loads of things are going on with the nose. You know, we could spend a lot of time talking about the wonderful nose. Leave those nose hairs where they are, because they're really important. The nose cleans the air. It's the first protection you've got of bringing the air in. If you think about how much rubbish is in the air right now, pollutants, dust. You know, there's a truck that goes by this house every day, and it's washing the road. And I was like, I don't know what's in that water. I have to hold my breath when I go by it. The nose is that first line of defense. And so if you breathe through your mouth, as we've had to just come out of 2 years worth of talking about viruses and germs and stuff, you're giving yourself almost no protection. So you need to breathe through the nose as number one. You need to use the diaphragm, which is number two. And then the third one, if you remember, number three, is just to breathe softly, lightly, and deeply. And if you can master some of that, you're going to see radical improvements in your mental health and your physical health.
Yeah, I love that. I have a slight bend in my nose, and my left nostril tends to be feels a bit more restricted than normal. So when I started taping my mouth at nighttime, I felt quite uncomfortable. Like I would panic a little bit. I'd just think, how can I get through this? It's not very comfortable, doesn't feel very nice, particularly when you go to bed, when you feel like there's some level of tension. But I tell you what, every time I tape my mouth at night, I wake up with the clearest nostrils, the clearest nose ever, good fresh brain. I honestly, there's something so bizarre about taping your mouth and yet waking up like feel fresh. My nose feels good, everything feels open and alive. And what's this about, like the body producing nitrous oxide? I thought that was just for like fast cars.
So there's nitrous, which is the laughing gas, isn't it? That's is that NO, and we produce nitric in the nose, nitric oxide, and that's also the same gas they use for whatever those blue pills are called. What they called that older men tend to take. You know the ones.
Oh yeah,
not saying you know them, but you know.
Yeah.
We all know not Viagra.
Yeah, Viagra. Yeah,
Viagra. Thank you. And that also has that. So what the nitric oxide is doing is it is sterilizing the air. It's antifungal, which is really cool. So it cleans the air for us. But on top of that, as you bring that nitric oxide in, it is what's known as a vasodilator, which is just fancy terms for it opens up all the blood vessels. As you draw that breath in, and I heard the other day, it only lasts for a few seconds. So it's not like it stores in your lungs for hours. So each breath brings it in, and then it dissipates. As that comes in, it allows you to take a fuller breath, a more efficient breath. So that means that if you take a breath in through your mouth versus a breath in through your nose, you're going to absorb more oxygen as it comes in through your nose.
It's more efficient. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's funny that you referred to Viagra, because I understand that we have erectile tissue within our nose, which is why if we keep using it, keep stimulating it through breathing through it, which is why it expands and opens in the way that it does.
Yeah, and if people are listening right now, they can just sort of cap one nostril and then cap the other. And you tend to find one's generally more open than the other. Now, obviously, you've got a deviated septum, so you'll probably find that yours is stuck in one more than the other. But they tend to fluctuate, I think, every 45 minutes. And there's multiple studies on how left nostril is a more cooling, relaxing, parasympathetic, and the right nostril is more energetic. And so one ancient practice, which is backed now by science, if you need more energy, you just cap your left nostril and just breathe through the right nostril for a few minutes, or vice versa. But going back to the erectile dysfunction for a second, it's interesting because I found a study recently which was around mouth breathers tend to have more problems in the bedroom. And why is that? Well, it's because when you mouth breathe, you blow off too much of that beautiful gas CO2, which is not a waste gas. And when you don't have enough CO2 in your body, all your veins constrict. And so there's places you need blood to get to at certain times. And if you've been mouth breathing, the blood can't get there because all the veins across the whole body have tightened up. Another reason why blood pressure shoots up with mouth breathers, because you're actually constricting all those 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels flying around the body. So just going back to using that nose again and being a light, slow and deep breather, that can make a real difference to opening up all of your vessels. And again, I keep coming back to that word efficient, because what is better when it's inefficient? I can't think of anything. I'm sure there is something that somebody can correct me on, but generally, if someone says, do you want to be a more efficient breather or a less efficient, you're going to lean towards the efficiency. And so nose, diaphragm, nitric oxide, using your belly properly, all those things. And they're not difficult things, and these are not expensive things either. You don't need to go out there and buy a bunch of equipment for this. It's just about I keep hearing the term retraining, and I'm not sure if that's the best term for this. Rebreathing, retraining. I like to say learning to breathe the way nature intended, and all relearning that. So it's basically just getting back to the basics again of sitting up straight, shutting your mouth, and using your nose.
Yeah, and you said a word at the very start of the show, and you said the word conscious breathing. I think 25,000 breaths, how many of those are conscious? And for me, I've made a small commitment. Obviously, I take my mouth at nighttime, but that's small commitment when I'm walking the dog, to go the entire dog walk consciously with my mouth closed, breathing through my nose only. And now I find myself, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm paying attention to my breath. Majority of the time, my mouth's closed. And I don't think that would have happened in the past. And it's starting to become my predominant state. I wouldn't say natural state, but more and more and more, it's becoming a predominant state.
Yeah, that's cool. And you can, if you wanted to, you can accelerate that. So basically you want to get your breathing to a point where you don't want to think about it. Because if you're thinking about it, you're probably doing it wrong. And then you've got your breathing exercises that are separate. So if you want to do a bit of Wim Hof or something like that, that's cool. But you've planned that you're going to go out on a Tuesday at 4 p.m. I'm going to do some Wim Hof breathing. But really, you don't think about your breathing. And the way to do that is to do breathing exercises that slow everything down, because probably for most of us, we're too sensitive to the CO2. And again, fancy terms, what that means is we feel suffocated, and that's the problem. So when most of us walk up a flight of stairs, or we go for a walk and there's a small hill, we generally open our mouths. And that's not because of anything that we've been taught. Maybe we've copied something, but generally it's because we feel like we're suffocated. And so you open up the bigger pipe, you open up the big pipe and you get more air in. That's a natural thing. But like what you're talking about and what I've been saying earlier, if you practice deliberately slow breathing, you will start to adapt to it to the point where, and I'm by no means a bloody athlete. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm on the watt bike at the gym now, and I'm trying to get myself out of breath as quick as I can. And I'm finding, especially after the free diving now, it's a bit harder to do that. I'm having to really push myself for the breathing start. Whereas if I go back to the start of the pandemic, I was getting out of breath all the time. And so it's just easy. It was only yesterday, again, I'm at the gym. I was like, right, full resistance on the bike, put it all up, stand in, got a bit of the Interstellar theme tune pumping, the docking scene, if anyone knows that. And I'm just going for it. And I'm just waiting for that moment. I need to go to my mouth, and eventually it happens, and you'll go to mouth and then you'll stop. But that delay is a lot longer now, and I can see the effects of what I've been doing the last 2 years, which is really cool. And then I get to see that with my clients as well. I've worked with a number of cyclists, and they've told me that they've gone from kind of mid ranks to kind of the top 2 or 3, and everyone's going, "What the hell are you doing? What's your training plan?" It's, no, they've been doing some deliberate, slow breathing exercises.
Yeah. My friend Katerina, she says that she went out and she did nose breathing running, and I was like, "You what?" And I thought, there is not a chance I could do that. And after doing a series of breath work over the summer, I started to just, my last run, nose breathe only, and I thought I'd barely get to the end of the street, and I'm going like, it's funny, isn't it, how just the capacity just for training and resilience for it. But one of the things that I didn't realize about breathwork is increasing our tolerance to that CO2 being present. Because we often think, right, if we flood our body full of oxygen, that's going to be, but there has to be a presence of CO2 within the body so that exchange, because the energy transfer is in the exchange of old for the new. So the old CO2, the used up oxygen, CO2, and the exchange for the oxygen. In my simplistic understanding, it's an exchange of those two gases which creates the electrical energy. Am I on the right path somewhere with that?
It's so there's a couple of exchanges. The one that happens in the lungs, but the one that is really affected by our breathing at a cellular level, and it's cellular respiratory breathing. I forget the term now. It's happening at a level. So the example I always give is if you're doing bicep curls at the gym. Now, you're not using a lot of muscles, but you're using specific muscles here. So this muscle is going to start heating up, and it's going to start to produce CO2 as a byproduct. Now, the body's so bloody clever. As the blood's pumping around your body, it's going to see that there's a lot more CO2 here. And in that presence, or in the environment of a rich CO2 environment, those blood cells are going to give off loads of oxygen, because that's what it does. Now, an environment where there's no CO2, it's not going to give off those cells because it doesn't need to. It's like ancient trigger. And so if you're mouth breathing, you've got low CO2, even when you need it, you can't get it. It's a really cruel thing. So the more we mouth breathe, the worse things get. But yeah, at a most basic level, you need to be breathing through the nose slowly to get that really nice switch. And then obviously when it comes to the lungs, you're breathing in air, the oxygen comes in, and the CO2 goes out. But really it's the cellular level which we're really screwing ourselves up on, which is all around the body. If we don't have enough CO2, we can't get the oxygen where it needs to. And so there's a lovely and tragic quote actually by Patrick McEwen, and it's something along the lines of, when you mouth breathe, I'm butchering this quote by the way, when you mouth breathe and you're breathing too fast, you are literally starving yourself of oxygen. And so that's the opposite of what we think, isn't it? Hang on, no, but I'm taking bigger breaths. It took me a while with the Wim Hof things to go, hang on, what's going on here? I thought I'm oxygenating myself. And you kind of are, but that's when you're doing the breath hold. When you're taking in those big, deep breaths, when you're hyperventilating, you are blowing off CO2, and you can't really get any more oxygen. You've put one of these pulse oximeters on your finger now. You'll see you're probably already full. But what you are doing is you're blowing off the CO2, just hit my microphone, and then the veins start to constrict, and you start to get lightheaded, and you get lightheaded in the brain, and it's quite a pleasant feeling.
And it's a cycle, because what you said earlier around the out breath is the signal to the body. So the more and more we're doing that, the body's getting a message saying we still need to fight and flight. We're still in activation mode, as opposed to telling the body we're cool. We've no longer required to fight or flight.
Yeah, exactly. Now there is a nuance to this, and this is where you get into the weeds a little bit. Which is there's a lady called Dr. Ella Manga. She's from South Africa, and she's a physician that's gone into breathwork. She's really, really cool lady. And she's saying, because a lot of people get stuck in their camps of breath work. I like to look at everything, but some people are saying, well, actually you should only down regulate using slow breath work, and people say to upregulate, use Wim Hof. She'll use a combination, which is really interesting. She said, do you know what, sometimes you've got a nervous, anxious energy about yourself, and actually you might just take a few deep breaths to get that energy out, and that's really cool. And I feel that in the gym sometimes. I just feel like I've been sitting at the desk all day, I need to go and lift a few weights and get that energy out of me. So that's where you get into the weeds. That's where you start to work with your own breath coach, and they'll find what's right for you. But it's sometimes not as simple as to say that does this and this does that, because we're all different and we all react differently to different things. Some people, I've got to the point probably now after 5-6 years, I love a bit of Wim Hof breathing, but it doesn't give me the same sensations that was done 5-6 years ago.
Of course.
I've got a friend that's very prone to panic attacks. He'll go nowhere near that exercise because it feels the same to him. The hands cramp up. And so you've got to be careful with these, especially these more powerful exercises, because they can put you into a panicked state, and you need to know what you're doing, really.
I did a 3-day fast earlier on in the year, and I did Wim Hof on day 3, and like it was the most bizarre experience. It was almost like being a beginner again. My entire body, my face was like, my lip was going, my hands were clawing, and I guess it's because my body was just empty of food. I was just purely electric, energetic being. It was the closest I've had to being a beginner since I've done it.
Cool.
Just being empty. And the really, and I guess that comes to that rest and digest thing. One of the things that you said in our conversation last week was about how, I won't share the story, I'll let you do that, but how by saying a little prayer or a bit of grace or visualizing over food, that can change our states for into digestion. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Again, it's these adages or these old tales. They all seem to stem back to something. They don't all seem to have come from nowhere. And so the idea of saying grace, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense now. And this wasn't a religious one. I was with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago in Ireland who has taught some of the French national teams how to breathe. So that's really cool. He does breath work with the football teams there. And we just sat down to have lunch together, and we just sat next to each other, and he just shut his eyes and he put his hands over his food like this. And I thought, I won't interrupt him, I'll just watch and see what happens in a second. And as he started eating, I go, hey up, mate, what's going on there? And he goes, no, I just I'm just want to be grateful. And I just want to wait for my mouth to start to water before I eat, because I know that my digestive system has kicked in. And he goes, sometimes I'll even feel the belly rumble a little bit. I was like, oh, that's cool. And even I've almost triggered myself now, because that's been 2 weeks. So even just as you spoke about it, then I got a little rush of water in the mouth, which is good, because I've always been a fast eater. I'll bad posture, eat it quickly and move on to go and play football outside or whatever it is you want to do with your friends when you're a kid. And I never really saw the point of grace or eating slowly, even though many people told me to eat slowly and chew your food properly. But there's just something about now at home, we've got, one of those Google speakers, Google play some relaxing, music. And then I just don't eat the food straight away now. I just wait, and it doesn't take long now at all to get that rush of saliva. And that rush of saliva, that's rest and digest. That's your body going, here is some formula that's going to help break down the food chemically. And then if your tummy starts to rumble, that's all the acids getting ready. So really simple practice for people. Just sit down, maybe you don't even have to close your eyes, but just wait for a few moments before you start eating. And maybe just do a bit of slow nasal breathing. And if you want, again, take it to the next level, move up a gear, just be a bit of great gratitude for the food, or for the people you're with, or for the day you've had, or for the sunshine, whatever those things are. Very quickly, you just start to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, that conversation was such a blessing, because whilst it was a failed attempt at a podcast recording that we're now redoing now, it was such a blessing, because the very next day I was coaching someone who was telling me about how they don't like to eat and they feel sick when they eat. And they thought that was an association with the food, as in the association with the food makes them sick. There's something to... But it was actually understanding that in an anxious state, your body isn't in digest mode. Your body is in fight flight mode. That's the anxiety. That's what the response biologically or physiologically to anxiety. It's like, I don't need to eat right now.
No.
Because my body's prepared to run from a tiger.
Yeah.
And it was just even being able to help him understand that perspective. Look, you don't have, it's not necessarily a problem with your food, mate. It's your body doesn't feel safe. it doesn't make sense to eat to the body,
No.
because it's like, hang on a minute, we need to escape.
Yeah, your ancient brain is saying there's a problem here. We might have to run or fight. We cannot be digesting food right now. So
Yeah.
sometimes people's bowels will empty, get IBS because you're stressed. Your body's just in a constant state. Some people throw up before an exam or something like that. Again, the body doesn't know it's an exam. The mind doesn't know. They just think they're about to go into war or something. And so that they're signals of being in a chronic stressful state. And so anything we can do to downregulate that or calm that down is that's the mission, I think, right there. That's what I feel my mission is. It's just we just need, and it's me too. I run hot. I run hot all the time, and so I'm just constantly trying to calm myself down, calm the dog down, and help other people try and calm down.
Yeah, next time we speak to you, you'll have like a yoga mat on the floor, a sound bowl in the corner, as you're navigating the joys of fatherhood.
Oh Jesus!
This episode's going out on the 21st of September. Which means that in a couple of weeks' time, you are at an event. Tell us a little bit about that event that you're going to be at.
Yeah, so really excited about that. Well, there's two. So this weekend, I'm at the Verve Festival teaching functional breathing, which is really cool. And then the weekend after that, or is it 2 weekends after, I'm going to be hosting my first Airheads Day. Airheads is a joint venture between me and author Tom Granger, who wrote the book Draw Breath. And he's probably one of the top experts now on coherence breathing. He's just been all around the US doing that. So we're going to be in London, in Camden, and we're going to give people a smorgasbord of breath work. So we'll be talking a bit about oxygen vantage and potato. We'll be doing some of the bigger breathing exercises and some stuff in between, and a bit of science and a bit of fun as well. I've got this really fun game I play now. I think it's fun anyway, where you get those party streamers, you know, the ones where you blow and the whistle comes out. I've only got one here. And we have a whistle off. We see who can keep it extended the longest. And we did that a couple of weeks ago at the Breath Festival. So yeah, we play with balloons and those sort of things. And so it's just a taste session for people that are newish to breath work, that want to see what it's all about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. A breathtacular event, 1st of October in London. I shall add all the good links in the show notes. And
thank you.
Where else can people connect with you, my friend? How can they partake in some of your exercises? What sort of things do you have hidden away in plain sight? It's not hidden away. What do you have on your channel that people can go and experience? That's the most important thing for my listeners, is to go and have an experience.
Have a go. Yeah. So if you just head over to YouTube, type in Take a Deep Breath, you should see my face pop up. We've got about 240 videos on there now, which seems a bit overwhelming, but they're broken down into categories. So if you just go into the main page, you'll see that there's breathwork for beginners, breathwork for medium, breathwork for experts, or advanced, I should say, not experts. And so just, have a play, read the safety instructions. I tend to start off with something nice and gentle. 4-7-8 is good for sleep. That's in for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8, generally through the mouth for the 8. Just have a play with different breathworks. Check out some of the podcasts. Like I say, we have the 50-second podcast now come out about breathing. These are all top experts in the world of breath and science, and authors and yogis and all that. So yeah, and then if you're interested in working one-on-one, I take on clients every other month, and so if you're interested, you can contact me through, if you go to YouTube, you'll find all the links, and you can contact me through there.
Love that. Do you mind giving us a very short demo of 2 different styles of breathing so people can understand the difference between maybe a Wim Hof and slow and steady?
Yeah, okay. So what we could do is we'll just do a little bit of maybe energetic, not quite Wim Hof, but if we sit up straight, we'll do the big stuff first. And what we'll do is sit up straight, move the microphone. And what we're going to do, we're going to put the arms in the air. I'm going to see if I can move my camera up a little bit. Oh, it needs to go a bit higher. Okay. Grab the hands like this. And as we pull them down, we're going to exhale down, and we're going to go up. So let's just do 10 together. So it's going to be like this.
Are we breathing through the nose or the mouth?
Wow. One more.
Well, yeah.
Hold for a second. Just enjoy that on the exhale. Just see what feelings or sensations that brings up. For some people, it could be a real rise in energy. Some tingling, maybe. We didn't go very deep there, but just gives you a small idea of the power of just 10 or 12 big breaths. And the good thing about when you put the arms up in the air, you open the rib cage up as well. So you get a bigger, a fuller breath. And it also feels cool when you put it down. Tony Robbins has an exercise called, I think it's just called priming. And he just does that. He does 10 of those, 10 of those, 10 of those. And then you start to think about what you're grateful for. It's really powerful. So that's that. Now, what we could do, let's do a little bit.
Just before we move on, just my reflection. So I've not done the physical movement with the breath. So I've done the Vim, I've done the kind of the DMT kind of breathing that Dan Vadney does on his channel, and I haven't incorporated with the physical movement. Even just like those 10 breaths, like I was just starting to bounce in my chair like that. It's 9 o'clock here at the time of recording. I was sleepy before we came onto this conversation. Like, mate, like I could go for another hour. Like just that 10-second breath. Like, yeah, that felt good. Felt nice in the chest, and the body is just feeling nice and awake. But yeah.
Well, let's calm you back down again now.
Yeah,
because we want to go bed.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. This is really cool, and I'm just getting into this area now. Breath work is amazing. Yoga is really cool, although I'm not very flexible. When you combine those two, that's when you've got the secret sauce. And so something like Qigong, which I'm obsessed with at the minute, seems to be the magic, because you're moving energy. And we'll just do a bit of gentle movement now. And suddenly it's almost like taking breath work and making it three-dimensional, because you're sitting there doing your breathing, but you're not moving your body. And actually so there's different ways of doing it. So let's just do a bit of the gentle stuff now as well. So again, we'll just do a bit of chair Qigong. It's not really Qigong, it's just breath movement. So for this one now, we want to be using our nose, in and out, and you want to be breathing so gently you can't hear your breath. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move some clouds. So with the right hand pushing to the left, you're going to exhale. And I'll make the noises just so we've got something to follow. And then with the left hand, as we come back, as we push those clouds, we're going to inhale. And really, as you're doing this, really picture that there's a cloud there. You're not going to move really quick. You're moving with your breath. So you're going to be in that place where there's actually a fluffy cloud that comes in. And just very slowly moving those clouds.
Yeah, I like that.
Really simple exercise. The other one is you can just picture you're standing in front of a waterfall and your hands are out. And you're just going to lift your hands up through the waterfall and imagine the water's hitting your hands as they come up, as you inhale, as you go up. And as you come down, just let your fingers touch that waterfall as you gently exhale out. And you're moving with the breath. The breath's not moving with you. You're not moving your hands to make your breath go faster. You're moving the speed of the inhale as you open up, and the exhale as you come down. So just play with the body and moving. I stand in the forest now in the mornings with the dog. She's off chewing sticks, and I'll try to be barefoot, and I'll just try and do 10 or 15 minutes of breath and movement in the morning, especially a lot of the opening up the body, nothing too crazy. And it's such a lovely way to start your day. If you can get a little bit of daylight in your eyes at the same time. The days I do that are completely different to the days that I don't do that. So I highly recommend, if you can, a bit of slow breathing with a bit of movement.
Conscious of time, we're going to wrap up, and I think one of the gold bits from our conversation last week that you just reminded me is the power of grounding. I think one of the things you just come across, because you just said about being barefoot in the forest, and I think one of the things I've learned is that the only negativity we want to surround ourselves with is nature. Why is that?
Yeah, well, so I had Clint Ober on my podcast. He is the author of the Earthing book, and he did a documentary called The Earthing Movie, which has had 4 million views on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful film. And so he's an electrical engineer, retired electrical engineer. And I'll give you a super quick version of this. He realized in the 60s, when they put the rubber soles on the shoes, we disconnected ourselves from the planet. And you think, oh, that's a bit woo-woo, come on. Actually, every other animal touches the earth. The earth is negatively charged. It's a big giant battery, and everything is connected to everything. You think about how the forests are and the roots and everything. We're all connected, and yet we talk, don't we? So much language we use as we've become disconnected. Well, that's so true. We've cut ourselves off from the planet. And what he's saying, which is really interesting, is when you are disconnected from the planet, inflammation just goes crazy in the body, and it's really hard to have cancers if you don't have inflammation. And to get rid of inflammation, you just need to touch the planet more. So I got a bit obsessed by that. Got grounding mats here, grounding mats on the bed. I'm touching the ground as much as I can, because really we would probably, if you go back, I don't know, a couple of 100 years ago, probably touching the ground 90% of the time. Probably slept on a wooden bed that had hay, and then the wood was touching the wooden floor, which touched the floor. Everything was grounded. Now we sleep on top of plastic, on top of plastic, on top of insulation, and so we're disconnected from the planet. And so the big thing that I'm looking into at the moment is, how can we be more connected? And if you want to take your breathwork game to the next level, or anything, workouts, stretching, community, there is something about being barefoot. So when I was at the Breath Festival a few weeks ago now, we did Qigong silently barefoot as a group. It was one of the most powerful experiences. Nobody said a word. We're in a circle with our shoes and socks off, just doing a bit of Qigong. It was just beautiful. So yeah, check out that movie, because that's a 2-hour version of what I've just said to you. But in short, it seems like one of the missing links to our health and longevity is the fact that not only are we in these artificial environments, sitting down all day with bad light and poor food and antibiotics and plastics and all these things, we are also disconnected from the planet. And maybe, just maybe, if we connect ourselves to the planet, that might be the key to unlock a lot of other stuff. And it does change your breathing rates as well, but that's probably a conversation for another time. But your breathing is different off and on the ground. Your HRV is different when you're grounded. It's better when you're grounded, when you're not grounded. They're testing this at the moment. So breathe through your nose, breathe through your diaphragm, and maybe take your shoes and socks off and touch the earth a little bit.
Love that. I have a word here, Always Better Than Yesterday, that describes the legacy of our work, and it's called heartprint. What do you think the legacy, the heartprint of your work, take a deep breath, will be?
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually after we spoke last week. So what is that? Because last week I was saying it's peace, and peace is definitely part of it. I think it's giving people the curiosity to go in there and play with their breath. Because when you play with your breath and you realize that you're not a slave to your emotions, and the narrative we've got now isn't the only narrative. So, it is weird to be with your shoes and socks off. It is weird to wear light blocking glasses at night. But actually, is it? Because I'll tell you what else is weird: wearing rubber-soled shoes and having blue lights in your face at 10 p.m. So, so I think it's about just, if people get a bit curious from listening to all my podcasts or doing my exercise and go, "Oh shit, I didn't know that was possible." Yeah. That to me is really exciting.
Possibilities. It's all about possibilities, my friend. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming back on the show for the second time, but the first official time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Be honored if you'd leave us a final thought for your good self.
Oh, okay. I'll stick with what I was thinking about from last week, which was the power of the hum. Play with the hum, because the hum is silly. It's fun. It sounds awesome. It unblocks your nose, and it creates more of that beautiful gas, nitric oxide. And you can play with your kids and your partners, and you can see who's got the longest hum. So just play with it. I love playing with it in the bath. Take that hum with you wherever you go. People are going to look at you silly, but actually you might also inspire a bit of curiosity with somebody with that hum as well. Go, what are you doing that for? I'm
Love
trying
that.
to breathe better.
So Team Hartley gets together every Friday night for family night. We will have the competition of the longest hum.
Yeah.
And if it's not me, I'll be repeating it.
I'll give you some secret tips how to extend your exhale after this.
It's good to know a breathwork coach, isn't it? Eh? My friend, thank you. And I'll share all your good links in the show notes. And yeah, appreciate you coming on, my friend.
No, thank you very much. And I look forward to having you on my podcast very soon as well.
Let's do it. Cool. Take care, brother.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Thank you for making it to the end of the interview here on YouTube. I hope that our time spent together has left you a little bit better than before you push play. Before you go anywhere, please leave a comment down below. Some of your key reflections, your key takeaways. I love hearing from you and what this conversation has inspired in you. Let me know what you're going to do as a result of this conversation. I will be back next Wednesday where I will share another inspiring guest. To make sure that you don't miss that, please do subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as soon as it goes live. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organization, please do visit alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com, and it will be my honor and privilege to help you in any way I can. Keep leading, my friends. I've been Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast here on YouTube. Always love.